We begin, as we have all week, with breaking news in the Middle East. After days of beating the war drum on Iran, President Trump is now taking a pause, buying himself some time to give diplomacy a chance and perhaps emerge as a peacemaker. Good evening, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Vargas. White House sources tell NewsNation that the president has been reviewing a number of options, weighing the costs and benefits of bombing a heavily secure nuclear site in Iran. And now we have a timeline on his decision.
Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks.
That news comes as Iran's foreign minister says he's ready to talk. He is set to meet with counterparts from Germany, France, and the United Kingdom tomorrow in Geneva, Switzerland. The pause also comes just days before President Trump is set to travel to the NATO summit in the Netherlands. But with or without U.S. involvement, the bombings in Israel and Iran continue. An Iranian missile struck the largest hospital in southern Israel today, according to the IDF. The attack killed at least 80 people, half of them hospital staff. Iran claimed, without evidence, that it was targeting Israeli military sites next to the hospital. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited the site and criticized Iran for going after civilians. He also said he trusts President Trump to do the right thing.
President Trump will do what's best for America. I trust his judgment. He's a tremendous friend, a tremendous world leader, a tremendous friend of Israel and the Jewish people. And we will do what we have to do, and we are doing it. We are committed to destroying the nuclear threat, the threat of a nuclear annihilation against Israel. We're able to do it. And we, of course, will make our own determination.
Meanwhile, Israeli jets targeted Iran's Arak nuclear reactor. It is inactive, but the IDF says it could have been restored to produce weapons-grade plutonium. These satellite photos show the before and after shots of the strikes. You can see the damage to the reactor's containment dome. The UN nuclear watchdog group says so far no radiation has leaked outside the plant, though the inside is now contaminated. Overall, since this conflict began last week, Israeli strikes have killed at least 639 people in Iran, according to a human rights group. Iranian strikes have killed at least 24 people in Israel. We have live team coverage of these breaking developments. NewsNation's Robert Sherman is in Tel Aviv, and Kelly Meyer is at the White House. But let's start with Robert. Robert, Israel's accusing Iran of crossing a red line with that hospital attack where 80 people were injured today.
Yeah, without question, Elizabeth. It has certainly hardened resolve, stirred anger on the ground here in Israel as the condemnation is being pointed directly at the supreme leader of Iran. You look at those videos inside of that hospital there. That was a direct hit that you are looking at that was fired from Iran in the early morning hours here, just after 7 o'clock in the morning, when sirens blared across much of Israel here, sending millions of people into the shelters. One of those ballistic missiles striking that hospital in Beersheba to the south, a major hospital center in which now all of those patients have been moved out. But Israel's defense minister, while touring some of the damage here today, pointed the finger directly at Supreme Leader Khamenei and said this. Take a listen.
I want to say that a dictator like Khamenei, who leads a country like Iran, has engraved on his flag the annihilation of the state of Israel. This terrible goal of destroying Israel cannot continue to exist.
Cannot continue to exist. Strong words coming from Israel's defense minister as the country looks to pick up the pieces after what was the largest barrage that we have seen here in days. If you look at the country as a whole, the injury estimates are more than 270 people were injured. Now, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu insisting that what happened today, hardening their resolves, ensuring that they will continue to push forward. He even went so far to say today they're prepared to go it alone, with or without the United States, believing they have the capability to do it, but insisting that the decision lies with President Trump if they get involved or not. Elizabeth?
If the Americans get involved, the Israelis are already deep involved. Interesting, Robert, that the Israeli leaders have gone from urging Iranian people to rise up to now saying this regime cannot continue to exist. So that is definitely getting harsher. Robert Sherman reporting live from Tel Aviv. Let's go now to NewsNation's Kelly Meyer, who's live at the White House. And Kelly, just days ago, President Trump was saying he was in no mood to negotiate and time for Iran, time was up. What changed today?
Yeah, it's interesting because despite saying that it was a little too late for Iran to come to the table, he's now essentially giving them some wiggle room to potentially come to the table on a new nuclear agreement, giving them another chance at this. So that is one part of this that's also really interesting in hearing from that decision from the president today to make a decision within 2 weeks whether or not the U.S. will go to war. And I'm learning tonight, just talking with some senior intelligence officials this evening, some new reporting that there is a divide in the intelligence community, in Trump's intelligence community. That's the same intelligence that he's using to decide whether or not the U.S. gets involved. That's a big decision, likely one of the biggest of his presidency, and it could divide the country as well as his base of supporters that put him in the White House in the first place. And Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, had this message to his supporters when pressed because they are saying that they don't want the U.S. to get involved militarily. Take a listen to this.
Trust in President Trump. President Trump has incredible instincts. Nobody should be surprised by the president's position that Iran absolutely cannot obtain a nuclear weapon. He's been unequivocally clear about this for decades.
So trust Trump. That's the message from the White House tonight. Trust that he'll make the right decision. Trust his instincts is what the White House is saying, while he is getting different opinions from his intelligence community. One side is saying that Iran could obtain and have this bomb within a matter of weeks, even days. Another side is saying that it could take months, even a year, and that the Israeli strikes have pushed them back even further on obtaining a nuclear weapon. So a lot of questions there tonight. It also comes as there are reports the president is sidelining his director of national intelligence, which is something that senior administration officials as well as officials around Tulsi Gabbard, the DNI director of national intelligence, say that's not true. They also say that she was here. Of course, we saw at the briefing today, briefing the president on the latest intelligence. And also new tonight, we're learning that the UK foreign minister, the foreign secretary, met with Rubio, the secretary of state, and Witkoff, Steve Witkoff, the special envoy to the Middle East. He says that a window now exists within these 2 weeks to achieve a diplomatic solution. So that really is the push here, to solve this with diplomacy instead of the U.S. getting involved in a potential war here.
Yeah,
Elizabeth.
the Europeans have been pushing from the start for a diplomatic solution. They are definitely happy to at least maybe have 2 weeks to get that worked out. Kelly Meyer reporting now from the White House. Thank you. Joining me now is retired Lieutenant General Mark Schwarz. His last assignment in the military was serving as the U.S. security coordinator for Israel and the Palestinian Authority. He's now with the RAND Corporation. General, great to have you back. So, General, first of all, how long can all these American military assets, these aircraft carrier battle groups, the strike groups that are all sitting in the Middle East awaiting orders, we have destroyers there, we have 9 aircraft squadrons there, mid-air refuelers in the area, missile destroyers. How long can they all sit there awaiting this decision?
Well, in past conflicts, in preparation for offensive operations, we've set the theater, and it's taken weeks, if not months, to get everything in place. I think the 2 weeks that the president has announced today, it provides the opportunity for the 2 carrier strike groups that are coming into the region, one out of the Indo-Pacific and one out of Norfolk, the Nimitz and the Ford strike groups specifically. And then also it's provided an opportunity for the CENTCOM commander to do a series of rehearsals based on the options that he provided to the president through the Secretary of Defense.
So it's actually giving our own military a chance to make sure everything is set. I mean, because we had, General Wesley Clark on last night saying there is a danger in having all these military assets just sitting there waiting.
Well, there's risks. There's risk trade-offs. So taking a carrier strike group out of, absent of what's going on in Iran, our principal strategic focus, and that is the Indo-Pacific and China in terms of deterrence. So there's a risk there. There is a point when you have forces, deployed and then postured for potential operations where you might see a little atrophy. We're not even close to that yet. I respect General Clark's, point, but we're not even close to that, right now in terms of, just kind of the wear that goes on in terms of preparation. As important is that it's given the opportunity to reposition forces and capabilities, increase their force protection and all those bases that we have inside of the Middle East, very, very in close proximity to Iran.
President Trump is buying himself some time to decide. He's also buying some time for Iran to cave and time for perhaps Russia and China to intervene and force Iran to the table. But might we also be missing an important opportunity to destroy this key nuclear facility, Fordo, for once and for all?
Well, Fordo is not going anywhere. And so, that facility is, deeply underground. And whether we struck it, over this next period of darkness or 2 weeks from now, we can still have the desired effects that we want in terms of denying its ability to be used for enhanced uranium enrichment. So, I actually think as a former military professional, it's very good that this time is allowed to try to come to a diplomatic, closure to this conflict and ultimately get Iran and the Khomeini and the rest of the regime leadership to give up their nuclear program. And, it's wait and see if we're going to be successful.
President Trump is undoubtedly weighing all the risks that a military strike on Iran might trigger. Iran has vowed to strike back and kill Americans if we bomb Fordo. The target list for Iran is long and troubling. Iran and its proxies could attack American bases, American soldiers. Iran could cut off oil through the Strait of Hormuz and cause global economic pain. Iran could even launch a dirty bomb or a bioweapon at Western targets in the Middle East or in Europe.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the last capability. I couldn't really speak to that, but certainly the range of options that you just laid out, Elizabeth, they have, even despite the success that Israel has had over the course of the last 7 days. They still have a lot of options. They still have a lot of surface-to-surface missiles, and probably the most capable militia group, that is the Shia militias. They've made a statement that they will attack the U.S. if, in fact, they enter the conflict.
There's also an issue around these bunker-busting bombs themselves. They have never been used in combat before. They're designed to burrow 200 feet deep. The Fordo nuclear facility is even deeper, 300 feet deep. We're not 100% sure these bunker-busting bombs will work on this particular facility. And there are reports this afternoon that President Trump is now asking some tough questions about whether these bunker-busting bombs will work.
Yeah, and it's great that the president is asking those very probing questions. Certainly, it is not going to be a one and done based on the capabilities that are advertised openly with this specific munition. But I do have a lot of faith in the testing and evaluation that goes into the munitions that the United States ends up putting into operational use. We're not going to know how many it will take until, if in fact we do go after Fordo, because we've never hit a facility of this magnitude, as you said, in testing. So it is a wait and see, but it's good to hear that the president's asking, those second, third order questions in terms of the capabilities that we have to address this threat.
Because here's the danger and the nightmare scenario. We strike with the bunker-busting bombs. They can't get deep enough to completely destroy the facility. And now we've done something aggressive toward Iran and invited retribution.
That is certainly a risk. There's that is one risk of a multitude of risks based on the U.S. getting involved in this conflict.
Well, it's a big decision facing the president tonight, but at least at this point, it appears he has put himself in the driver's seat when it comes to the timing. The Israelis have been pushing hard for this to happen right away. It appears he will now decide and give himself enough time to decide, as opposed to being pressured into rushing, which is always a good thing, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't want to, while Israel is a staunch ally of the United States, and we have, several tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Americans living in Israel. We've got U.S. forces there. Ultimately, this decision on behalf of putting at risk U.S. service members, needs to, sit with our president, not with a foreign prime minister or a foreign president.
All right, General Mark Schwarz, thanks for your analysis. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
The general just mentioned all those Americans living in Israel. There are a lot of Americans not just living there, but visiting there. And the situation for all of them is growing increasingly desperate tonight. Many are looking to get out of the country as Iranian missiles continue to rain down on military and civilian targets, like the strike on the hospital in southern Israel that we're showing you. The American embassy in Jerusalem just issued a new security alert today, saying the State Department is making contingency plans to get U.S. citizens out of Israel. A government plane yesterday evacuated diplomats and their family members who had asked to leave. Around 3,000 American Jews who had traveled to Israel as part of a birthright trip cut their visit short as well. They fled to Cyprus before then taking a plane back to the U.S. And then there's this group.
Thank you, Greybel! Thank you, Greybel! Thank you, Greybel! Thank you, Greybel!
Thank you, Greybel. These are some of the 300 people who've been evacuated from Israel thanks to the Greybel Rescue Foundation. The private nonprofit out of Tampa, Florida, says it's ready to move even more people to safety as part of its Operation Olive Shield. The group is comprised mostly of veterans who have made it their mission to rescue people from dangerous places around the world. It's helmed by CEO Brian Stern, himself a multiple-tour combat veteran of the U.S. Army and Navy. He joins us now. Great to see you again. We had you on a couple of nights ago on Tuesday to talk about the rescue missions. How have they been going since then?
We're in the rescue game, every day is an adventure. I'll say that much. We have a lot going on. Most of us haven't slept in 3-4 days, including myself, so we're pretty busy working.
The State Department announced this morning that it's working on getting Americans out on charter flights and cruise ships. Are you surprised that the State Department isn't doing more to get Americans out? It's been warning there's an extreme risk to be in Israel right now, and other countries are telling their citizens to evacuate now.
When these decisions happen within the government, I worked for the government for many, many years in and out of uniform. When these decisions happen and when these decisions are made and people are trying to figure out what to do and what the right answer is and messaging and optics and all those things, there's a lot that goes into it. So I'm never surprised one way or the other about what decisions the government makes. And but I do agree with the State Department. It's time for everyone to go. I think that the situation's going to get worse, not better. The risk is certainly increasing, not decreasing. The volatility part of this is increasing, not decreasing. And I would say I join with the State Department saying time for everyone to go, get out of the way. Let's see what this will be. And you can always come back.
But the airspace above Israel is still closed to civilian traffic. So the only way out for most folks is either boat or to drive to the border.
That's right. Until the airspace opens, that's the way it is. And in the surrounding countries, airspace is opening and closing because Iran isn't immediately next door. So when they launch rockets and missiles and drones and all that stuff, it has to fly through other countries' airspace, and that really is the biggest problem. At the same time, it would not surprise me in the least if Israel opens up the airspace a little bit and does let limited flights come in, which we're going to take advantage of that if and when that happens. But the Iranians need to be extremely careful. If they accidentally shoot down a plane, Boeing 777, a 300-seat aircraft with, let's say, 300 American citizens on it, I'm pretty sure that Trump is going to blow a gasket, and that will force an action that I don't think Iran really wants. So care must be taken by them to not make that mistake.
How desperate are the people who are reaching out to you for help getting out?
Pretty desperate. We're just around 5,000 people right now that have asked for help.
5,000.
Yeah, we're conducting operation. We're conducting a lot of. We're busy here. Maritime operations are hard, and I'm not really a fan of them, to be frank. Land operations, just bad things happen on the water. Engines break, people get sick, people drown. I mean, the maritime environment is the most dangerous environment outside of outer space from an operational perspective, from an operational military perspective. the land and the air are far safer and far safer and more forgiving.
Yeah.
So we do both. We do maritime operations, we do land operations, and we do air operations, because the name of the game is get our people out as Americans.
Well, you can't do air operations till the skies open back up. But I know, Brian, you and your organization are doing everything humanly possible to help folks out in their time of need. They can get in touch with you, Greybel Rescue, if they need help getting out of Israel. Brian Stern, great to see you again.
Thank you. GreybelRescue.org is our website. Please donate. Things cost money.
You
It's
got
not
it.
cheap stuff. Need public help.
All right. Thanks, Brian. Coming up for us, we continue to follow all this breaking news out of the Middle East. I spoke to former Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, who says the U.S. must join the fight now. Why he says there is no time to waste. Plus, we have a NewsNation exclusive. Why would a dentist sign up to go to military training with no intention of becoming a soldier? We'll take you inside the boot camp for the Prepared Citizens movement. All right, well, President Trump now says he'll decide within the next 2 weeks whether the United States will join Israel in its attack on Iran. There is a vocal contingent of Israelis who've been lobbying the Americans to get involved now. Among them is Israel's former Minister of Defense, General Yoav Gallant. He says America needs to help Israel eliminate the threat of Iran's nuclear program, even if that would inflame tensions with the Islamic Republic. Remember, the Islamic Republic has long called the United States the Great Satan. I spoke to General Gallant, who was in Tel Aviv a short time ago. General, first I want to get your reaction to the news today that President Trump is saying he will now decide within 2 weeks whether to strike Iran. Are you concerned at all that he may be backing away from attacking Iran?
I trust President Trump to make the right decisions for the United States, and I believe that in this specific case, there is a full alignment between the needs of Israel and the needs of America, because it is essential to make sure that Iran will not possess nuclear weapon ever. And the president reiterated time and again. So whether it's a week or 2 weeks, it doesn't make the difference. We are going to continue to eliminate their ambitions. You know, on every Iranian missile, it is written either death to Israel or death to America. So we need to understand who are these terror leaders. And I believe that the president will do the right thing.
You co-wrote an op-ed saying that Israel cannot destroy the Fordo nuclear plant. You wrote, only America can do this. With a single exertion of its unmatched military strength, the United States can shorten the war, prevent wider escalation, and end the principal threat to Middle Eastern stability. This is a rare moment. It must not be missed. You are not concerned and that we might be missing that by waiting?
Israel by itself has the option to delay the Iranian nuclear program in a few years, and we are already on the way to doing it by the actions we took and on the way that we did it. Eliminate the scientists and, of course, hitting Natanz and other very important facilities.
Right, but to be clear, Israel, with its bombs and its commandos, cannot destroy the Fordo nuclear plant?
Israel can create a huge damage, and let me say it this way. American jets and Israeli pilots are the best combination in the world. But we don't have all the different types of plans that America has.
Trump is giving the Iranians time to make a deal. Do you trust the Iranians to stick to any deal they might strike? They violated the IAEA rules by enriching uranium past the point they would need for peaceful purposes already.
I don't trust the Iranians. I know them very, very good, but they are in the corner. Israel made a great, I would say, huge progress towards eliminating the Iranian program, but the final blow should be an American one.
Israel has one of the world's leading missile interception systems, but you're now firing interceptors faster than you can make them. There are reports that Israel's now conserving interceptors, saving them to protect heavily populated areas. Are you worried that by stretching this out another 2 weeks, that's going to become an issue?
This question should be directed to the Iranians, because the situation in Tehran is much worse than the situation in Israel. And the reason is simple. On each one of their missiles, we are hitting 10, 20, and sometimes 100 targets precisely. And unlike the Iranians who shoot civilians and hospitals, we are hitting only Revolutionary Guard and military targets. So they are suffering much more than what's going on. And I believe that the air campaign cannot change the regime, but it creates a different atmosphere in Iran. And the Iranians are very worried about the instability that is created there. Therefore, the pressure is over there. The Israeli people are very strong and resilient.
Israel was opposed to the agreement reached with Iran under President Obama. Would you support an agreement that President Trump might reach with Iran now?
Well, in the Middle East, if you put even once the word "if" in a sentence, you can get everywhere. Let's see what's going on. I believe that the right thing to be done is to demolish their ability, full point. But let's see what are the future bring to us.
All right, General Yoav Gallant, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Thank you.
All right, so coming up for us, would American intervention in the Middle East, would a strike on Iran really make the world safer? When we come back, I'll speak with Ambassador Dennis Ross, who says he has a statecraft approach for dealing with Iran. He'll tell us what it is next. So Iran's supreme leader has warned that any military involvement by the United States would result in, quote, irreparable damage to the United States. So in one scenario, that damage could involve a direct retaliation on American troops. We have more than 40,000 soldiers stationed in and around the Middle East, with 2,500 of them just next door to Iran at a U.S. base in Iraq. Ballistic missiles could reach them within minutes of being fired, meaning there would be very little time to intercept them or to take cover. Someone who's been thinking a lot about all these scenarios is the former ambassador and special envoy to the Middle East, Dennis Ross. He is currently a distinguished fellow at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, and he has a brand new book out called Statecraft 2.0. Ambassador Ross, great to have you here, and the timing of a book on statecraft coming out could not be more exquisite. So after 5 days of extraordinary losses to Israel, Iran seems to be looking for a way out. What are the chances they will actually, at this point, agree to give up all their nukes?
Look, it's a really fundamental question, isn't it? Because the essence is when the president says they can't have a nuclear weapon, they don't have a nuclear weapon today, but they put themselves in a position where they're a threshold nuclear weapon state. So what's the key objective? When you talk about statecraft, you start with identifying what is your essential objective, and then you think about what your means are. So the essential objective is Iran has to give up a nuclear weapons option. Now, what are the means? The means are but clearly what the Israelis are doing, but also the threats that President Trump is making. What you're asking is, will they give all this up? The answer with the Iranians will be to suggest we're prepared to talk. It doesn't mean they're necessarily prepared to concede all of this. They have to understand what they stand to lose. One of the things I did in the book on the chapter on Iran, I looked at every American administration from Carter to today, looked at Iran's behavior in response to them, and what came through was the following. Number one, the most important preoccupation of the regime is survival. Number two, every time they thought about the risk of conflict with the United States, they saw that as risking survival, so they sought to avoid it. And number three, when they measured risks, the higher the risk was in their mind, the more likely they were to make a concession to us. It wasn't always, by the way, the threat of military force. It was even very tough economic sanctions.
So
they said they would. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But so if survival is paramount to this Iranian regime, survival means giving up this nuclear enrichment program. Why wouldn't they do that? Is it pride that keeps them clinging on to this? Why are they not surviving?
They fear looking like they capitulated. When President Trump says unconditional surrender, the Supreme Leader looks at that and says, if I agree to that, my enemies here, our opponents here, those who are prepared to try to change the regime, they'll think that we're so desperate and we're so weak that this is the moment for them to move against us. So they're unlikely to respond to that. But I can tell you, I just returned from having been in Israel and in Jordan. I talked to a number of Arab officials outside of Jordan and in Jordan, and what was coming through was the Iranians are reaching out to all the different Arab leaders, especially those who talk to the United States, and saying, we're ready to negotiate. Some of them were saying, the Iranians were saying, look, we will give up enrichment, but we need a face saver. Now, that again kind of implies there's a level of desperation there. They will publicly not put that out, obviously, because again, that gets to the issue of, does looking weak threaten the regime from within?
So you think listen, yes. We know that Israel is really pressuring President Trump to pull the trigger, literally, and drop these bunker busters on Fordo.
Right.
But it sounds like you're hearing also clear messages from the Iranians, all through intermediaries to Trump, that hold on, we'll talk, we'll figure a fig leaf to preserve our pride later, but we'll do what you say. There's a chance at a diplomatic solution here.
I think there is a chance. When the president said today, 2 weeks, I don't know that 2 weeks is a magic figure for him. He's used it in other circumstances. But what it tells me is the messages that are coming through to the White House, primarily from the Arabs, is there is a chance here. The Gulf states don't want the war to expand. They would like to see the war end. They're not crying crocodile tears over what's been happening to Iran. They see Iran dramatically weakened, because that's a fact.
Right.
Israel decapitated the military. They killed the
It's a fact, and it's something that everybody wants in that region. Iran is not a popular neighbor, and I'm putting that very politely and mildly. This is utterly fascinating. I wish we could talk much longer, but I do want to remind our viewers that you have a brand new book and an entire chapter on Iran, which gives a lot of good contextual information to what we are seeing happening right now today. The book is Statecraft 2.0. Ambassador Dennis Ross, real pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, coming up for us, if war, riot, or natural disaster comes to your neighborhood, are you prepared? We're taking you inside the movement that is training for that moment, and they're not just stocking up on canned goods and flashlight batteries. And remember to download our NewsNation app for the latest news on the top stories of the night. The assassination of Minnesota's state representative Melissa Hortman and her husband, a potential terror attack by a desperate Iranian regime. The world gives us plenty of reasons to worry about violence and disaster, and those examples were just in the last few days. So what is the average American supposed to do about it? Bank on the statistical fact that overall, today's odds of meeting a violent death are at historical lows? Go about our business and hope that in a moment of crisis, sheltering in place will be enough to keep us alive? Well, for a growing number of Americans, the answer is a firm no. They call themselves prepared citizens, and they are flocking to special training sites to learn self-defense and survival skills from military and law enforcement pros. They say they don't want to use violence, but they are prepared to do so if need be, they say. In a do-or-die situation, their choice is do whatever it takes. NewsNation's Alex Capriella joins us live. Alex, you visited one of these training sites. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I did, Elizabeth, and I had a chance to listen to the teachings from these gun instructors, which weren't exactly political in nature, although they did express a general sense of uneasiness about the world around us. It's part of the reason why we're seeing Americans take matters into their own hands, preparing both guns and their bodies for battle, just in case they find themselves in a dogfight.
They're not enlisted, though they dress ready for war. They don't have military training, though they can reliably hit targets 3 football fields away. What they do have is fear of violent crime, civil unrest, even foreign invasion. And here, deep in the sticks of Central Florida, these everyday Americans gather with guns in hand, training for the day they will need to keep themselves safe by any means necessary.
In your opinion, the world is more safe when we know how to use guns?
Oh, 100%.
Air Force veteran Eric Rocher leads the shooters in these military-style combat trainings. When Russia invaded Ukraine and civilians were forced to take up arms, Rocher decided he didn't want to see Americans succumb to the same fate.
They were trying to learn how to shoot literally days before the Russians invaded. And so they were almost like helpless. And I saw it, I was like, in America, we shouldn't have that problem.
As an Air Force tactical specialist, he knows techniques, disciplines, and standards that most civilians don't.
This should be information that every citizen should know about because it creates a better shooter, a safer shooter, a more defendable country.
More than 90% of the men and women who come to the Barrel and Hatchet open gyms aren't currently serving in the military, veterans, or members of law enforcement. They're actually everyday citizens, just like you and I.
Take Dan Pham, for example. He's a civil engineer that builds robots. Brandon Jordan, he's a YouTube content creator. And Angela Clow is an exercise physiologist.
I'm this very loving, caring girl, but I can be fierce.
When I spoke to them, every single one said they want to be prepared for any threat, and they expressed deep concern about our country and our world.
Riots, elections, foreign wars, people realizing that their safety is their own personal responsibility. No one's coming to save them. So they're going to have to be able to defend themselves and take matters into their own hands if they need to.
From the outside looking in, it looks like they're building a militia, but they insist they're not. Instead, they're among a growing cohort of prepared citizens, everyday folks worried about a near future where gun smoke fills the air. They just want to make sure it's coming from their guns.
I think that a lot more people are kind of feeling like something is coming globally. And so because of that, there is a sense of urgency to be able to train, to get their family equipped with training.
For the first time in more than 30 years, recent polling shows more Americans have guns in their homes than not. 1 in 5 gun owners now own AR-15 style semi-automatic rifles, with the majority saying they bought it for self-defense. And overall, more than 26 million Americans purchased their first gun in the last 5 years, with some of the greatest surges coming from African Americans, women, and liberal voters. That's more than the entire population of Florida.
It's not cops, it's not veterans, it's not current military.
No.
It's teachers, it's software engineers, it's dentists, it's lawyers, it's doctors. Why would a dentist need to know how to shoot a rifle 300 yards?
I have a responsibility to protect myself and my family. You know, if I need help, if I have to call law enforcement, it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and usually that's way too long. So I need to be able to perform on command when the time comes, if the time comes, God forbid.
These civilians hope they never have to put their training to use. But if any of their worst-case scenarios materialize, they won't be going down without a fight.
The more that people kind of see what we're doing, they understand our purpose is the brotherhood and in doing something together that we enjoy. That's also a useful tool in the event of a bad scenario. That's what we're doing. We're not doomsday preppers out here.
I know he didn't. You didn't.
Beyond just learning advanced weapon techniques, there is a real sense of camaraderie among the men and women at Open Gym. After all, they have been doing it for several years, and so many of them tell me they first came for the target practice. They now stay for the people. Elizabeth.
All right, Alex Capriella, thank you so much. Coming up, back to our top story. The White House says President Trump will make a decision on Iran within 2 weeks. But what happens until then? Chris Cuomo joins me live next to discuss. Wow. Wow, that is the moment. A SpaceX test rocket exploded last night on the launch pad in Starbase, Texas, sending a colossally huge fireball high into the sky. This was a static fire test, meaning the Starship was bolted to the stand. It wasn't supposed to launch or lift off. SpaceX says the spacecraft experienced a, quote, major anomaly. I think that's putting it mildly. Founder Elon Musk says initial analysis indicated a storage container containing pressurized nitrogen somehow failed. Unfortunately, this is now the fourth time the company has lost a Starship spacecraft so far this year. Hopefully, things will turn around. A lot of the program at NASA, a lot of the space programs rely on SpaceX. All right, Chris Cuomo joins me now. Chris, quite the day today. President Trump bought himself another 2 weeks to make a decision on Iran. What did you make of that announcement?
Waiting is not weakness.
No, it's not.
I have a full plate tonight of people with great insight into what is known and what is not known, what matters. But this window confirms that we don't know that anything is imminent. And that's not to say that the Israeli prime minister is wrong, but his reckoning does not have to be America's reckoning. They can still be our ally, and we can have a different strategy when it comes to how to deal with Iran. I don't think the president should be criticized for waiting, but we're in such a cheap period of politics that's what it is. I'm not going to do that on the show tonight, but I am also going to remind at the top of the show, even though we have a lot more media these days, you ever notice, Elizabeth, that we seem to cover less and less? We got to stop this myopic notion of just only one thing matters at a time. There's a lot going on that we're forgetting about in this kind of frenzy around whether or not to bomb.
Yeah, it's a huge decision, biggest decision of President Trump's life, undoubtedly. But you're right, there is a lot more going on. I know you'll get to it. Have a great show tonight. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.